Hello, Kathy Campbell.
Why, hello there, Alex Cox. I always feel like I say your last name Chicagoan.
Chicagoan?
Chicagoan?
Is that
Yeah.
how okay, I aim to refer to myself?
I mean, I don't want to say what you should identify yourself as, but that's how I always call Chicago people Chicagoans,
Chicagoans?
especially after challenge has come into my vocabulary.
Oh God, it's it's something that I learned in high school. I was lucky enough to be able to travel to at least like different parts of the country, and yeah, I apparently have an accent, and I've just accepted this. And but it's like worse because like our mutual friend Steven from Tennessee, like he has like an accent, but a normal voice, and it's like I have a normal voice, but then there's just certain words that just can't. And on top
Yep.
of that, I have like I feel like it's too much to call it a speech impediment, but that's what it's been. It's like my stammering as well as I can't say certain words, like the things you that fasten your shirt together. Sometimes I
Okay.
can say the one there's butts in the button. Oh God, see I can't do it.
Oh,
Anyway.
it's fine. I just love it so much.
Oh
And when you
God.
say a word every week on a podcast, like challenge, it's gonna, yeah, yeah, it's gonna
Challenge.
trigger people's brains.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of weird, we didn't have a set. We had a set recording time, but we're recording earlier. Hooray! And you were like ready if you are, and I'm heading to the studio. And then I see that somebody hopefully photoshopped their face onto their arm as a tattoo.
Uh,
So
yeah.
so that's just what's been going on in my brain. And I bring that up because that's a reference to another show I do called Do by Friday, and we have a challenge every week. And this week's challenge was to listen with empathy. And you are one of the most empathetic people I know, and I just wanted to talk to you about that as a
Uh,
general concept.
sure. When I heard that challenge, uh, on the show, I was just like, oh, I cannot wait to listen. And of course, my day has been so busy and it came out early and I still haven't had a chance to listen to it. But that's fine.
Oh no, I'm glad.
Yeah, no. So we can have our conversation without being, tainted by Merlin and Max, and whatever else you might have said on the show. But yeah, empathy is so important to me, in everything that I do, and that I'm very thankful that it's showing, like that my actions, kind of like we spoke about when we were talking about religion,
Hmm.
acting like a Christian instead of just saying you're a Christian. It's the same
Right.
thing, being showing through your actions that you're empathetic and understanding and there for somebody, even if you don't
Hmm.
really, even if you've never experienced it, you can still be empathetic. And yeah, it's really important in my life, and teaching Avi to be empathetic as well, in every situation is just, it's, yeah, it's one of my key things, I think. My goals for, like, how you leave the world behind, what you want to be remembered for,
Mm.
not in a particular thing, like I'm going to change the world by inventing, I don't know, something. Uh, I want, at my funeral to have people talk about empathy, I guess.
That makes a lot of sense, especially, well, just again, knowing you. And I think that leaving the world behind concept is interesting. There's something I've been thinking about a lot, which is it was either a tweet or a quote. It was probably both a tweet and a quote. But I saw that someone said I think it was people won't remember what you say to them, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
And that's actually something a teacher said to me. There, like at school, I think one of the students, their parent passed away or something, and she was like, it's not like it wasn't weird. It was like in a small setting, and we were talking about like how to provide support as a friend, and she's like, it honestly probably doesn't matter what you say. They'll just remember that you said something.
Yes.
And
yes.
I like that. I try to think about that a lot. I don't know.
Well, and I mean, sometimes they will remember what you say. I just think of two separate people that said to me after Ryan's stroke, "Good for you for sticking around." So that I remember.
Huh.
Because I was just shocked that it happened twice.
Huh.
Like, I was going to leave my husband to fend for himself.
Huh.
Yeah, I still don't quite know how to react to that.
I mean, you definitely remember how they made you feel.
That's true. And confused was a very good part of that. But other than that, yeah, you don't really remember the exact words that happen. Yeah. And I think I may have just lost everything that we just talked about in the recording.
I mean, that's okay because your reception coming in has been great, but I did hear it's like your mic was unplugged and then it came back.
That's exactly what happened. And so call recorder apparently took that as a second thing. So we'll see, but we'll play it by ear. I might just use both sides of your audio that you submit. So I don't know.
Like it's a test. I mean, it is a test.
It's a test of the emergency broadcast system.
That's very good. Oh, it's still work hours. I can't do I do my laugh as if man, people think my laugh is fake. And I'm like, I wish I could turn this off.
It's so great. It makes me so happy. Your giggle, like,
it's a thing.
Yes, and I don't care people that say that they don't like it, but I can see how somebody could, whatever, but like having experienced it in real time, I know that it's not fake. Like,
I'm not that good of an actor. And you can really tell, I've noticed, you can really tell that it's real because it gets worse when I'm drunk and it just slows down when I'm high. Like I've heard recordings of myself stoned and it's just like, see, I can't even like.
No, you can't.
Yeah. So, but yeah. But you have a similar laugh, but it's not like your laugh is totally recognizable, but it's not like, oh boy, that's a noise.
I'm so glad because I have a hard time, especially on like the game show on the Uncomfortable Network. I do a lot of laughing in that because there's a lot of really funny things that happen, and every so often I listen back and I'm just like, oh. I hope, and part of me is like, I hope people don't hate that. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't care because I'm not like, this is real. This is what I am. And so it's fine if they don't like it, but still it's just like, I hope people aren't annoyed.
I mean, if people are annoyed by joy, it's like I think it's sort of similar. I don't know. I mean, I know this is straying from empathy, but I'm trying to think of like, an analogy like I get annoyed by people's tics all the time, like without a judgment, it's like a visceral reaction.
Yeah.
Like my spouse hates the sound of chewing noises, even if they're really soft. Even they're
I cannot. Cannot.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have trained my daughter from a young age to keep her lips closed when she's chewing.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing. It's not even when folks have their mouths open, it's purely the noise, and even if it's like a noise that is similar to that, like they just like can't handle that and like, nope, I'm out. And so I understand people have like visceral reactions to things, but I think we're in terms of talking about the majority of people who are like quote annoyed. They just I it's like let people experience joy. Like yes, sometimes I'm annoyed by like the sorority girls cackling in the corner, but you know what? I'm going to try to hope oh, this is empathy. I'm going to try to
It
believe
is
that
empathy.
yeah, like they're giggling about like something good and not and I'm projecting onto them, man, I bet they're like laughing at someone and making fun of someone. No, maybe there's a silly cat on the internet. I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah. No, and that's it's so hard. That part where you're like, "Oh, are they laughing at me?" almost sometimes. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you're in a group situation and you're just like, "Oh my gosh, they're laughing at me." And really they probably didn't even notice you.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Mm-hmm.
that's something that's like really poignant in my own mind, and something that I'm trying to really teach Avi is that we are so self-conscious of ourselves because
Yep.
this is the
Mm-hmm.
person that we are. This is the body that we live in. This is, what we do. And yet everyone else is that same self-conscious
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
self. And so they're concerned about themselves to a point where
Mm-hmm.
they probably don't even notice a factor that you're concerned about.
Right.
Uh, I am very self-conscious about my teeth. I am very aware of all parts of it, how they're definitely not straight, they're not white, they're not all of this stuff. But I also learned that my smile means that people don't notice my teeth.
I was literally trying to think about your teeth, and I'm just thinking like, Kathy has a. You should smile more. Like Kathy has a like Kathy's smile lights up like it literally like sometimes like glowing from Instagram. Your smile lights up my face. So I that's a perfect example. I'm like, what's wrong with Kathy's teeth?
Yeah.
And I think it's important to like those feelings you have aren't invalid because it is no feelings are invalid. Like they might be dumb
Right.
feelings. Like I feel that Donald Trump's a good president. And yeah, no, you're an idiot, but that feeling isn't invalid. Um, but I think we need to accept and not like demonize the idea that people are self-centered because like that's all we know. Like we need to embrace that and be aware of it so that we can like and yeah like you said not just be aware of our own self-centeredness but that person not just like they're not noticing you but they have their own shit like everyone has their own shit and I don't know like we should celebrate that we're self-centered so that we like that is what humans do that is
Yes.
part of what defines us like we have a single consciousness as far as we know.
Yep. Yep. And that is 100% okay because embrace it, enjoy it as much as you can to the point where it's like, yeah, this is the reality of life. And that's where empathy comes in so much too, because you don't have to have experienced what someone's going through to understand that it hurts
Yes. Mm-hmm.
or that it is affecting them in a way that, again, you may not understand because you don't know their history. You don't know what their family situation was and is. You don't know what their
Mm-hmm.
financial situation was and is. And guess what? You don't have to know to think of them as a human being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it, as shitty as Donald Trump is, and believe me, this is not going to be that podcast, but I look at him and I see someone who is doing something that they didn't want to do. They got signed up for this gig that they wanted to be this showman because that has been his history. He is all about extravagance, the gold toilets and his name on everything, and that is his personality. And now he wanted to be president the same way that like elementary school kids say they want to be a president,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but without actually realizing
Mm-hmm.
how hard it is. Or, hey, I want to be a princess. But then you look at, Meghan Markle and she's a princess and it's hard work.
Yeah. Ugh.
And it's rough. And so I'm just like, man, that sucks. I still think he is making so many poor decisions, but I don't necessarily hate him as a person. I don't want to meet him. I don't want to talk to him because I probably would slap his face or punch him. But I can see him as a human, and he continues to make poor decisions. And so I don't, it's hard to explain because I don't want this to be a thing where it's like, oh, Kathy, sympathizes for poor rich man, because that's not what I'm trying to be.
And that's, I think, the difference between sympathy and empathy. You're trying to empathize with, I'm going to go on the record and say, I definitely hate Mike Pence. And it's almost like, can you hate the current consciousness of a person who clearly has dementia and is not all there and is like very broken and has been, this is a whole thing. There's something in that of like, you can empathize with, like, I was thinking like the election night was the worst night of many people's lives, including probably Donald Trump's.
Yes.
And you can feel that without saying this is a good thing. Like, I think it's important to like empathize with the villains of the world, because that's the only way we're going to get anywhere. Yeah. Like the whole idea of everything Trump does is like Occam's razor. Like, it is the dumbest thing because he's a human being who's just like, he's a terrible human. And like we need to understand and accept the word human in there, I think, of like, no, I don't know. Like, humanizing people is something that I think I always think, and the reason I came out strong on Mike Pence in terms of like no hesitation in terms of like hating and being like, if you could send somebody to hell, like, oh, yep, it would be Mike Pence, is because I've seen so much more of him as a human being, and I can like, because he was the governor of Indiana, and like because it's close to Chicago, and because like I do a lot of business there, and wow, that sounded weird, but and I have family there, like seeing him be a monster for decades, it's like, oh wow.
I 100% agree, because he is making these choices. He's choosing to be a terrible human being, which is terrible, whereas Trump, I think, is just not.
No,
he's a child. He's a toddler.
Yeah, it's like, can a toddler be evil? Like, that is a question I truly do not know the answer to. Oh man, this is people. I hope people aren't. Okay, if we could empathize with serial killers, which we would be better at catching them. That is why the FBI started a profile of started profiling people. We're not, I don't know. It's all the like angry incels who are like, women are fantasizing about Ted Bundy. Like, honestly, probably a lot of folks. But like, why? Yeah, these are like very. Like, this man is unique. It's disgusting and horrible, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like if we can reach for the empathy stars in terms of like literal like celebrities and like monsters, then maybe we should also try to focus more on empathizing with the person who's going real slow at the grocery store or just cut you off. Like, whenever somebody cuts me off, I'm like, they're heading to the doctor's office. Like, I just keep like, there is a sick child in that car. Like,
or they honestly didn't see you, which I have done before, and I'm always like, oh my gosh, I am a terrible human being. I know that they're swearing at me and stuff, and so I know that like that can be an accident. And so is also why that's what I choose to try and live is you have done this before on complete accident.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you automatically assume that they did it on purpose?
Whenever, right. And Maddie gets like, not like, I don't know, like it's not road rage, but like has very little patience for bad drivers. And also, he's not that great of a driver either. I hope you're listening to this, Maddie. This is not a private conversation. You know this. Let's all accept it. I've talked about it on every podcast. But I always say this is water, which is like a David Foster Wallace has a little. I think that was his. Frick, what is it called when the college man talks at the students who are graduating? Commencement?
Yes.
Commencement speech? There we are. All right.
Speech. Wow, I couldn't think of it either.
I mean, it's better than, oh boy, slight spoiler for Due by Friday. I forgot the words possessive and heights. So this was a better brain fart. But the whole thing is just like, this is a constant flowing stream. Like, this is our existence. Let's embrace it. This is water, and not like just. I think he specifically says like the person going slowly at the grocery like checkout. Like I don't know. I think about when I'm like having like anxiety or hallucinations or something, and just there's that fear of being noticed and like outed as someone who's mentally ill, or I don't know. This is unleashing a lot of feelings. Whew. We're back on brand with
I know. Like, let's get emotions again, please.
Oh. How do you go about being Do you find that it's hard for people to empathize with you because you're in a very Merlin's going to be mad if I say very unique, but fuck it. You're in a very unique position as a caregiver, and like I'm always constantly trying to empathize with you, and again like it's like I feel like we need to not feel bad at failing at empathy the same way like we should see it as like, oh, I didn't win that race, but I tried really hard and I did better than last time. So I hope that I'm doing better with empathizing with you and your situation. But do you find that it is harder for a lot of folks?
I don't know, because I don't really have that conversation with people. But I know that so Ryan's stroke happened more than 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I have met a lot of people in my life after that happened. So that means there are people that I don't know if they know.
Oh. Yeah.
Because it's something that I always kind of have to pause sometimes, because I do not want to be that person that says, oh, my husband had a stroke and I'm raising my daughter and I own my own businesses and like I work for myself and because I don't think that my journey is any different than anyone else's, because I do what I have to do to get stuff done, period. And so I always want to make sure that we talked about it a little bit like before, where I don't ever talk to somebody and expect that they've seen my Facebook post.
Right.
Or my Twitter feed or Instagram or any of that. I can't ever come in that place. But it also sometimes surprises me when I'm like, oh yeah, you don't know my husband almost died.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know that I gave birth to a surrogate baby.
Oh yeah.
You don't know that I take pictures.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know that I do podcasts. You don't know that I help businesses get their shit together.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know that I have a product-based business around the town that I live in. Like these, everyone's lives are so complex, and I've made it more difficult by monetizing friendships and hobbies.
That's spoilers. That's also what's the thing that comes. I'm sorry. Go on.
And so in that same vein, I don't really know, or not care is the wrong word, but I don't ever expect empathy on the other side, if that makes sense.
It does. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing,
Yeah,
actually.
I'm sure it's probably closer to the bad part.
I mean,
But
I don't think it's your fault, but the fact that you just don't, I mean, I guess you're right not to expect empathy when nobody knows the situation. Like, I get that. Like,
yeah,
but
I always hope for it. Don't get me wrong.
oh, for
Like,
sure.
I want all of the empathy, and would hope that it is there. I also try not to ever be in a situation where I need it. I think that's how I deal with it the most, where I don't ever want to ask for something that someone isn't ready to give, or a situation where I put too much onus on someone else, which is why, like, it's hard for me to say, hey, are we recording? When I know, and like, that's why we have, that keyword in place, and it's totally fine. Like, because I just want to know one way or the other, so I can plan my day differently.
We should we should mention, like, there was a time, like, I don't know, we maybe missed like 2 weeks, and people are like, what's luckily it was during the holidays, so nobody really was like mad.
It's like 4 weeks, but that's fine.
Yeah, oh god, yeah. And I was like real fucked up for a month over some family stuff related to mental illness, because, and I don't talked about, oh wow, I don't like to talk about the specifics of other members of my family's mental illnesses on podcasts, but I think it is important for me to acknowledge that, like, my mental illness is like, it can run in families, and we should all recognize that it is not necessarily always situational. But it also can be. Everything is, what's wrong with you is definitely real. Don't worry.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's an okay tangent to go on.
But there was, normally, I used to be good at handling. I'm okay with handling my own shit usually, but lately I think maybe it's because I've been trying to be much more empathetic, in that there have been some situations where like, I cannot even, as they say, like, it just like broke me, and Maddie has talked about this like semi-publicly. I'll see if we can put it in the show notes, but like, I just, this was, I think, one of the nicest things anybody's ever done for me. I just sent you like our little thing of, I cannot record today, and then I didn't even do that. I sent you screenshots of like something that was going on, and I'm like, can you just tell other people who I'm supposed to be recording with? And I don't think I've actually thanked you enough for how important that was. And in that time, like, you knew exactly, not that I didn't want to talk about it, or not that I didn't want to tell you anything about it, but that I was at a point where it like was literally hard for me to like look at my phone and text.
Yes.
Which is something that I need to acknowledge that it will happen sometimes, and it might happen to both of us. And God, Kathy Campbell, I love you. That was like the man. That was so helpful, and it like,
I'm so glad, because it was nothing to me. I mean, obviously, the situation made my I hurt for you, and my heart hurt for you, but I have no problem telling other people things. Like, if it makes it easier for you, abso-freaking-lutely. And I don't need specifics. I don't need like I it's not my place to, let me ask questions and find out more information other than what I need to know to pass on whatever information. Like, totally fine. Like, and so I'm so glad that I was able to be there for you and to do that for you in a way that was helpful.
Like it's you're one of those people who is not only willing to do emotional labor for friends, but like actual labor for friends. like
If
sure,
I
that
can.
is also, yeah, I mean, yeah, like I sometimes I don't worry that you don't value your time enough, because you are an adult who, I think, like you are an adult, and you most of the time, I think, know your own worth, because, and that is why you're amazing. But I sometimes, like, I worry. I'm like, I really hope Kathy knows just how amazing she is, and like just how many people appreciate her. But like, we had there was an early episode of the show where you talked about like not like someone not throwing you a birthday party or something, and it was with zero malice whatsoever, but it like made my blood boil of like, oh my God. And I understand that's part of like internet friendship and like the lifestyle that you, part of it has been like not your choice, but part of your choice. And like, I don't know. I hope you know how good you are, Kathy Campbell. Like the capital G good and lowercase good, all of the typefaces of good.
Well, and it's been a rough couple months. I think so. My postpartum anxiety is not getting better, to where I'm talking to doctors and we haven't even talked about this, but I'm in physical therapy now for my back and hips and stuff, which has been interesting, because last week I had 2 appointments, and the first one, the stuff hurt so badly that we had to take a step back in my exercises, and I was feeling very down about that.
Oh,
and
fuck.
like,
I did not know that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, again, like, it's not something that I'm expecting other people to know.
Yeah, but
But yeah, it was really, it was hard to fail at something, kind of, even though it's nothing I have a lot of control over, but it just it made me recognize how screwed up my body is more than I had hoped. Dang it, we weren't gonna cry.
Long past that point, buddy.
Yeah, no, it's true.
I can hide that better than my laugh.
Yes. So having, on top of like these physical things, having the postpartum anxiety involved in it too, to where my brain isn't working the way that I want it to work. And I've made some mistakes in my work that I've done and let some things drop. So I'm like having to reconfigure things to make it work better, and just an overall almost essence of what the heck am I doing type of a thing. And so thank you is basically where I was going with this, for saying that and pointing out that I'm not a complete and utter total failure.
Yeah, I think we need to, yes, because you are an incredibly, incredibly strong human, and I think, or I don't want to assume, but I feel like we don't remind the strong people in our lives how amazing they are, because we don't necessarily know if they're having a rough time, or if there's their brain or body, like your brain and or body can be failing at something that isn't, like, folks don't always have visible disabilities or visible illnesses, like anxieties, like it has been a silent killer. And I'm just seeing what you've been going through is just, again, everybody has their shit, but Kathy Campbell has a lot of like you make shit look like rainbows that are in toilets. Like, oh, look at that. And I don't know, I think people just need to remind you of that more.
Thank you. And I need to learn how to react better to said things. Like I just said, thank you, instead of arguing. So go me.
Yeah.
I'm learning something.
I mean, it really says something about our culture that you, of all people, can't accept a compliment like that. Oh gosh. Man.
Yeah.
Fuck men. Uh,
Yeah.
oh boy. I'm. How you doing, Kathy Camel?
I'm here. It's so last episode we talked about like that whole look at the chimneys and
Mm-hmm.
my good morning posts.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was looking back on this the past week and a half, that was really just not good. I noticed that I hadn't really posted my good morning Instagram stories. And I thought that was really telling, that I could tell in the past how my attitude essence was because I didn't even want to look up and see that beauty.
That is a very good realization. And what a good thing for people to know. Like, maybe it's time to check in on Kathy if, like, I see, and I actually noticed that, but then I would like this is an unhealthy thing for me to do. But I noticed that, and I'm like, oh dang it, I should be on Instagram more because I'm missing the 24-hour thing, and but that's like a really like to be like, oh, this something might be going on, and I do really like the honesty always. We've talked about this, but the honesty of your Instagram posts, and you're not positive when you don't feel like you're a generally positive person, but you're like you said, you're not the person like shoving it down people's throats, and
Yes.
you show that it's okay to be sad. It's very hard to be sad. But it is okay.
Yeah, because everyone is sad. Everyone is going to have these moments. And if you don't, then you're lying. But also, if I am having a bad day, I'm going to acknowledge it so that I can work better at getting better almost. I want to make sure that I am not. I want to accept and acknowledge the sadness without dwelling on it, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Because
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
it's not healthy for me to sit and just be like, oh, these are all the terrible things that are going on.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree, and I think part of the I honestly think sometimes talking about that or just posting a tweet or something, it's almost part of that. Like, I acknowledged this is real, and now I can move on. Like, I'm not
Yes.
always successful in thinking that, but I also find it's helpful for me to think, is this unhappiness something that I imposed on myself, or was it situational and could not be avoided?
Right.
And it's a lot of times I'm like, I did this to myself. This is my, like, the classical on brand self-hatred of Alex. But it's also been like, I think I've been better with almost empathizing with myself. This got masturbatory real quick, but like being
Hey, no, that's a good thing.
like being like, oh, okay, remember, take a step outside. Like, there's literally nothing you could have done to prevent, like, to help this family member out with their health issues.
Yeah.
Like, there's literally, like, you have done everything. It is okay that you are sad, and it is okay that you need to be sad, but there was nothing to prevent this sadness. Does
Yes.
that make sense?
Absolutely. That it's not something that you did.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier this week, had a really hard night. I ended up not being able to sleep until like 1:00 in the morning, which,
Ugh.
as we've talked about before, is really late for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up posting on my Facebook, because I have people I talk to on Twitter and Instagram and stuff, but Facebook still I get more feedback. A lot of the people that, like, a larger number of people of my network are on Facebook. Instagram is a different group, and Twitter is a different group. But if I need feedback or if I need something, it's been on Facebook. So say what you will about, the terribleness. Yes, it is absolutely terrible. But when I need a connection with a group of people, it ends up being Facebook is where I go to.
Have I told you about my Facebook/food desert analogy?
Yes. Or no, well, you didn't tell me directly, but I heard it on a previous show. Actually, I think you talked about it both on Dubai Friday and Supercomputer.
Oh, yeah, I guess I really am married to this idea.
Yes. No, and it's a great idea. And I agree 100% because I can't just go in and delete Facebook. I have a lot of my photography inquiries are through there. I have, like, dance team stuff is all through Facebook. The nonprofit that I help with is all on Facebook. We've tried other places. We've tried Discord. We've tried, private forums and stuff. And Facebook just ends up being that one grocery store in a 60-mile radius. And it is, and it hurts. But yeah, that's kind of how Facebook is for me. Say what you will about me and my personality or what that means, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
I agree, and that is part of. I think I said something that came off wrong in the when I talked about Facebook at one point, and I'm like, I have to evaluate if somebody's on Facebook, do I really want to communicate with them? And that I still stand by that for, like, how I used Facebook, because that was like where I would post. I used to post like self-promotional things. Like, I still do it on Twitter, I still do it on Instagram. And I found that in my community, I was not getting that great feedback. And like, however, there are private Facebook groups that are like for various like medical stuff, and for Maddie, like who's like considering top surgery and stuff. Like, there are support groups there that don't exist anywhere else, and
they won't until it becomes too much, like how MySpace was. Like, it's until the olds find something that they will also communicate on, and the non-technical. And I mean, there's so many reasons that Facebook is still around and still as strong of a community as it is. And it's frustrating, but this is what I am working with. And so when I had a night where I didn't feel attacked necessarily, but I was definitely having a hard evening. And I posted on my Facebook, and I was just like, and I'll read it for this great audio content, which I know you all came here for. I said, "Hey, you. Yes, you reading this right now. I love you. We may not have talked in a while, but I promise I love you. As I deal with my own demons, it doesn't take away from any you might be fighting either. So know that, yes, I love you." And it was a lot. It was vague booking is a thing. And I didn't want to be a vague book because it really didn't matter what the specifics were about the situation. But it was at 10:12 that I posted this. So it was already 2 hours past my bedtime. I was exhausted and emotionally drained. And I am so glad that I did, because I have people that have come in to give me love that I needed. I needed that appreciation and just that confirmation and refresh of, hey, yeah, people like me, which is so self-masturbatory, but wow, I can't say that word.
I have always disagreed with that, because when you, for the first time, post a picture of yourself with the person you're dating who isn't I'm oh god, I can't believe I'm fucking crying about this. I remember the
Gosh.
first time I posted a picture of Maddie and I on Instagram, and that's the first time I'd ever put me and a significant other on the internet. And for people who that was almost like coming out, and people were like,
Yeah.
and it's the thing of like I don't remember what people said in the comments, but I do remember how that number made me feel, and that might be unhealthy sometimes, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's one thing to make posts just for the likes, like to get a reaction, and it's another to have a safe reminder almost that, hey, you're loved.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't try and do it very often because it's not healthy for anybody to only do. The trick is to not do things only for the likes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No. Yeah. Yeah.
But to acknowledge that, hey, it's okay to be happy with something and to like, okay, this is good. Like, let's do this. Like, let's make this work.
The equivalent I can think of, or like, because so many of our communities exist online, it's almost like a digital like pat on the back or thumbs up or
Yeah.
like someone coming over and like squeezing your shoulder. Oh, that seems like a weird thing. Like it's just this little thing
Hey.
of like you don't want to get into a conversation, but it's like you are being seen. And
Yes.
that is like in Instagram stories now. I need to there's like those quick reactions.
Yes,
And
I am so glad that those happened.
Yeah.
It was so, well, especially the first couple times, like I was just like, oh my gosh, that sends like a message, like an actual message, which obviously it sends a message like when you're typing, oh, awesome, type like, because I like to, there's a joke in a couple separate friends groups that I like everything. So if I favorite your tweet, or if I'll like your Facebook post or I'll like your Instagram thing to acknowledge that I've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
want to make sure that I'm acknowledging, hey, I'm appreciating the time that you took to do this. And it's a joke in that, oh, Kathy doesn't like this because she didn't like my page. Like it's just hilarious and it's fine. It makes me laugh. But I am so glad now that we can do those quick reactions so I don't feel like, because stories are hard for me mentally, to like, look at me watching this, I'm appreciating you, and so like I love those quick reactions.
Mm-hmm. That's yeah. That I don't know. At first I saw people going around being like, oh, are you this lazy? Like you can't type like LOL, and it's like it's truly not bad. Like just I don't know. There are so many toxic things, and there are so many like talk about digital empathy. Like there was a long time where Facebook only had a like button, and the joke was like, what do you do when someone talks about like letting people know that a family member died? Like, what are you supposed to do there? And the same thing is kind of true on Twitter, I think, which is like people react to things in different ways online. And if you see that someone's saying, hey, my grandma passed away, and it has like 1,000 likes, now it's like, okay, we understand that means something different, but there is no official like lexicon of how to show empathy online in the right way. And I think it's okay that we're still figuring it out, but
because things are always changing. I mean,
yeah.
those quick reactions at Instagram just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook just recently, I mean, within the last couple years, made the reaction post things for Facebook. Like there's a wide range of things that are changing, and it's only going to keep changing even more. Like we're not done with the change. And I like being able to have different levels of different ways to share empathy digitally as well as in person, because it's so important. Internet friends are real friends. Anyone that tells you different doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, oh man, that's a different. It's like ableist. It's classist. It's just there's it's all kind of ists. Like
so many things in there. So many things.
Well. You ended on such a positive note, and then I was like,
but you know what? That's how life is. It's okay to have positive things and then just go. Are we gonna be Matthew Casanelli and make our dinosaur sounds?
I love Matthew Casanelli so much.
I do too.
Oh God, that video was so good. Oh, Kathy Campbell, where would you like people to find you on the internet?
You can find me. I'm Mrs. Soup pretty much everywhere. Or kathycampbell.com if you want to hire me for something. Or buy something that I produce. That'd be cool. Or just like and subscribe. Or, leave us reviews would be awesome. That would be a great way to show digital empathy.
Especially this episode. I like all of our episodes. But if you also you can star things in Overcast, my podcast player of choice, and that helps. Like honestly, like almost every new podcast I find is usually by word of mouth. Except for in Overcast. And iTunes is just like, it's a algorithm game. So just,
yeah.
You can leave a negative review and it still helps. But please don't do that.
Yeah, please don't do that. I will cry a little bit because I still don't quite have the thick skin of awesome women on the internet. So please be nice.
If you're going to bully someone, bully me. It gets lost.
Alex is used to it.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Oh, man.
You know what? That is one thing that I will fully take. Maybe that's one that might be the one thing I'm more experienced at than Kathy Campbell. Wow.
Uh-huh.
What a sad truth.
Because I'm still in the world of I am so small that nobody really has enough exposure to me to hate me.
Oh, no. I wasn't even talking about no. It's gamer. You did not experience Gamergate as a person who no. Oh no, I wasn't even thinking about that. Who cares? Yeah, no. No. Oh, Gamergate.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what Gamergate is, please buy. If you're looking for me on the internet, don't bother looking. Look for this book called Crash Course by my friend Zoe Quinn, who was basically the center of Gamergate and is such a wonderful human being and doesn't want to talk about it online anymore. So she wrote an amazing book. I apologize. I believe that they use they pronouns. But yeah, their book is amazing, and that's where you can find me on the internet. But yeah, please check out my friend's book on the internet. On the internet and about the internet. Oh, wait, and my other friend's book, Kathy Campbell's, which we still need to do an episode on. My goodness.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Yeah, we will. Have a fantastic evening, Kathy Campbell. I love you so much.
Oh, Alex Cox, I love you too.
Bye.
Bye.